Okay, well, hi everyone. My name is Bella. I am one of the college coaches with You Need Us Now. And yeah, this is the scholarship workshop English version. But yeah, we'll get started. Okay, a little bit of an overview of exactly what we're going to talk about. First up, what are scholarships? Basically explaining the different types, finding scholarships, go figure, how to find them, how to approach the why I need money question that you're going to be tackling a lot with your students when they're applying to these scholarships, coaching practices, how to best be efficient and to have these conversations with your students, developing a personal scholarship database, very important for both coaches and for students. So how to develop that. And then lastly, some key takeaways for the workshop. So yeah, we will continue on. Now, one of the most important questions that we're going to be tackling is, okay, what are scholarships? What does this mean? So it's a form of financial aid. Specifically, it's free money. Free money. We love scholarships because they're not loans. You don't need to pay them back. You're not paying it back to the government. You're not paying it back to a company or to a nonprofit. This is your money. You're awarded a scholarship. You keep the money. It is free money. There's three types of scholarships: national, regional, state, and local scholarships. We love the local scholarships. And the reason that they're important, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but they're a lot less competitive and they're specifically for like hometown local college students, basically. Okay. Now, talking a little bit about, okay, we know scholarships are free money. What else is involved? They all have their own criteria. Some scholarships can only be for students that have a certain minority status. So that is low income. You have to make below a certain amount in your family income. You have to be first generation, first in your family to go to college, or first in your family to go to college in the US. Sometimes overlaps. You have to be a woman, you have to be part of the LGBTQ plus community, you have to be a person of color, religion, etc. So some scholarships have this certain criteria that your student must meet in order to apply. Then there is scholarship criteria. So that is for specifically like demographics, really. Then there is academic interest for scholarships. So some scholarships are going to be asking if you are a STEM student, you have to be, in order to apply, you have to be science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Maybe you have to be an art student. I've seen lots of scholarships like you have to be an art student applying to this art scholarship. Some scholarships are very precise. You have to be engineering, specifically aerospace engineering, civil engineering. There's lots of engineering societies that give scholarships. I've seen a few, like physics, and a lot that are nursing, especially in Florida. Now, okay, so get you a little bit of an idea of what scholarships are, the criteria. There's some main scholarships that you should know as a college coach. And once again, I'm going to really encourage the local scholarships. And once again, I'm going to hammer this into you guys that local scholarships is where it's at. It's a lot less competitive. They're better for your students, but there's some that you should know off the top of your head. First one, huge, Community Foundation of Sarasota County. That is a scholarship that I have all my students always apply for every single year. We're going to talk about renewable scholarships. Manatee Community Foundation. We have some points of contact here for an email. Shelby Foundation. This one has specifically like a low income requirement. You have to make, your family has to make a certain amount. American Association of University Women, mainly for women, students that are women. There's a Catholic Community Foundation, like we talked about before, some of our religion demographics. Gulf Coast Community Foundation, Hispanic Scholarship Fund. You have to be Hispanic, you have to be of Hispanic descent. Gimmick Boulay Foundation, I believe that's like first gen and people of color. These are local scholarships that you should know of and that you should actively try to recruit your students to apply for. There's some scholarships that are not as well known that I don't always have all of my students apply for because they're a little bit more specific, such as like local alumni associations. There's a Seminole Club. If your student is thinking about going to FSU, they can apply to scholarships within that club. UF Gator Club, same thing, but for University of Florida, go Gators. There are sometimes some scholarships offered by the university that your student is applying for. UF offers one for incoming students, same thing with USF, UCF. You can go on. But an important thing is that a majority of these colleges will actually have your students automatically enroll for these scholarships, and you don't have to do a separate application. These that I'm talking about beforehand, these community foundations, those you have to go out and apply for. So there's lots of different types. But once again, these are the top ones that are main scholarships you know. And these are the ones that you should have in the back burner. Education Foundation, they have a scholarship database. That's where I love to look for some more scholarships for students, and that gets to be a little bit more specific. They have they have a lot of local and a few national. And of course, you need us now. We have our own scholarship database. Something you should definitely check out. It's new, and it's working very well. Okay, now some scholarships you just should have memorized. That's those are the scholarships that you should know. But of course, you always want to expand your personal database. We're gonna get into that a little bit later. But how to find them? Because that's something you want to integrate into yourself, into your students, how to be self-sufficient and find scholarships. So there's a lot of ways to do this. One of my favorite ways is me cheating a little bit is but some high schools already have set scholarship databases that you can, look at and, provide for your students. Brittany River High School has a really good one. Manatee High School has their own. These are just, once again, just a website page of scholarships that I like to check in to see if there's anything new. There's sometimes local college scholarship databases. For example, New College, they have a scholarship website on their page, basically with local Florida scholarships that you can apply for. Social media. Who knew? Social media also has a lot of scholarships that you could find. Granted, you would have to find you have to do a little bit of digging. I actually love to have my students do a scholarship TikTok assignment when we're talking about scholarships. Is basically where I have them explore TikTok for at least half an hour. I know it's giving them social media homework, but basically explore social media TikTok for half an hour and try to find scholarships, looking up TikTok, Florida scholarships, women's scholarships, and they will find some sometimes. Instagram also has a lot of scholarships. I found and won a scholarship based off Instagram. So you just have to get used to seeing that on your feed, scouting it for social media, and you'll eventually start seeing it naturally pop up. Because now I get ads for scholarships all the time. They're like, oh, have you seen this scholarship? I follow scholarship accounts, etc. And Facebook. Sometimes, not as always, but you will add Facebook and different now. Same thing. But one thing I would like to really emphasize is it's not the necessarily like the number of scholarships that you apply to. I mean, granted, you do want to apply to as many as you can. Um, it's it's not like necessarily excuse me, it's not necessarily the amount of like money that the scholarships are providing. You want to apply to as many as you can, but it's also the quality that's also really important because you want to spend most of your time having your students apply for local scholarships, mainly because number one thing, it's extremely competitive if you apply for national scholarships versus regional and local. Now, to give you guys a little bit of an idea, what would a typical scholarship list will look like for a student? Here I have an example. We have senior. She is a Hispanic woman, low income. She's interested in engineering. Off the bat, I'm gonna tell my student, you're gonna apply to the Manatee Community Foundation because it's renewable. Now, it's a term that I've been throwing out. What does that mean? Renewable scholarships are scholarships that you can renew every single year that you're in college. Granted, more or less, they allow you like a maximum of like 5 years, but more or less 4. And the great thing is that you develop already kind of an establishment with the community foundation, so they know that you're applying, and it's a reliable scholarship. As soon as you win it for the first time, the second time, you're more likely to win it also the third and fourth. So these are scholarships that you can apply for every single year. And you can approximate, okay, if you won 2000 the first year, 2000 the second year, you would probably win another 2000 your third and fourth, etc. Same thing with Community Foundation of Sarasota County, because these two counties allow you to apply to, if you're in Manatee, you can apply to Manatee and Sarasota. If you're living in Sarasota, you can apply to Sarasota and Manatee. It's great. So I always have my students apply to those two because they're general scholarships locally. Shelby Foundation, she's low income, she qualifies, also under their renewable scholarship. AAUW, now they're now paired with the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, but it's technically another scholarship that you can win. She's a woman, so this is something I would have her also make sure that she's applying for when she applies for the Sarasota Community Foundation. And lastly, the Sarasota Education, a lot of scholarships to Sarasota Education Foundation. These are not renewable. They have lots of different ones every year, but usually they're around the same, but they're not renewable. So if she wins one of them, let's say that's $2,000. So if you add all this up, Manatee, she wins 2,000. Sarasota, she wins 2,000. Shelby, she wins like they usually win about 4. AUW 2, and if she just wins one from Sarasota Education Foundation, let's just say 2. So that is more or less gonna be around 10,000 a year. And this is just applying locally, and this is, this is not a huge list. This is what, like 5? Yeah, this is 5 scholarships, but these are 5 local scholarships that I know my student can win because she's a competitive applicant, she has the grades, she has the qualifiers, and this is not including Bright Futures, it's not including college scholarships, any other scholarships that she could apply to besides this 5, or the Pell Grant from FAFSA. So just a little bit of an idea. Okay. Also very important. We talked about what are scholarships. We talked about how to find them. Now, how do we apply for them? The why I need money question. So when your students apply to scholarships, and when yourself even also you apply for scholarships, you're more likely, I would say, I would give it higher than a 50-50 chance. I'd say odds are like maybe, I don't know, 9-1. Anyway, point is, you're very likely to get the question, the prompt, why do you need money? And when you're first tackling this question with your student the first time, it puts them in a vulnerable spot because, they have to kind of open up about why they require that financial need. They're gonna have to talk about their family's, status, their, money situation. So the first thing I always like to do is I like to put the question aside. I like to put the scholarship aside. I'm like, okay, now I always give my context first about how I've tackled this question. And the way you usually do this is like I explained that like I had to open up about my own financial context, my own family financial situation, and it required me to be vulnerable. I would give them examples like I have 2 working parents. I've grown up in a household worried about money, and I'm the first in my family to go off to college, and they're going to worry about money, and they're going to worry more about money when my little brother goes to college. Providing the financial context, especially as college coach. You're in a position where your students trust you, they look up to you. So with that being said, if you can make yourself, be a little bit vulnerable, they're going to reciprocate that. And then that is going to allow you to figure out with them how to best articulate this response, because the beginning, the context is absolutely one of the most important sections. It's the introduction, it's how you present yourself, how you present where your student is coming from. So would really stress that. Now, as you help your students figure out how to provide that financial context, where you shift the tone is explain, okay, this is my situation. Maybe sucks, it sucks. We need money. And the reason that I need money is because of this, and you want your students to specifically state, I want to go to blank university. Blank university is going to cost me this much for tuition, this much for room and board, this one for my food, etc. Because most students that don't have a college cash, that don't have us, will not be as descriptive when applying to, or when basically answering this prompt. So an example, I like to always tell my students, use this more or less word by word. I'm expecting my university to cost me blank per year, and specifically talk about like the allocation of the funding. Now, we have the context, we have the explanation of how they're going to use their funds. Another important part is talking about their academic goals, their career goals. Because okay, you're going to you're struggling, financial issues. This is how you're going to use the money. But like, what are you going to get out of this in the end of your 4 years? Explain. The scholarship is going to have a major impact in me achieving my career goals, which is what? What is your career ambitions? You want to be a doctor, astrophysicist, nurse, etc., an artist. Explain exactly what are you going to use the money for in college, but also like at the end of your 4 years, what are you achieving? Now, that's very important, and that should be like, at least a few sentences. Ideally, your student already has some explanation of like what they want to do as a career, maybe from their college college supplemental essays. Now, the very last part of the essay that you really got to hit home about, for once again, the why I need money question, is what is the future impact? Talked about context, use of funds, academic goals. How, why the why that the foundation, excuse me, when the foundation gives your student money, how are they going to use this money? How are they going to use their academic career accomplishments to give back to the community? Because at the end of the day, they want to know that you're a worthy investment, that your students are a worthy investment, not only because they're gonna, use the money for good for like succeeding, but they're also gonna give back. They're gonna pay it forward. And this is, once again, a really important part for you to write home about, because this is going to be explaining how your student is going to give an positive impact back to the community, how they're going to make a difference in the field, how they're going to make their own scholarship foundation one day. I've had a student that tackled the prompt like that. Explaining how the scholarship is not for the individual success of the student, but it's going to make a meaningful contribution to society and the community as a whole. So lots of working parts to this. I know it's one question, but it's a very important question. Okay. Wow, it's almost, we have 20 minutes already. Wow, I really just yapped. Okay, so moving on from how to tackle this essay prompt to coaching practices. Okay, because it's not all fun rainbows all the time. You have to also learn how to be the most efficient when finding these scholarships and tackling these, prompts of your students. So the first thing is that, like the key factors when talking to your student first about scholarships is mentioning one, how we're going to prioritize applying for scholarships with foundations. Two, renewable scholarships, money you can rely on every year. And then finding scholarships always, always with an essay requirement. Sometimes students can be lazy. Heck, I can be lazy too. But one thing I always tell my students is, if you're lazy, I'm lazy. A lot of people are lazy. And it is very, very competitive to win a scholarship with a no essay requirement, because by that at that point, it's just a lottery system. So having these conversations with your student. I also love to express to my students that we're going to find scholarships that are perfect for you, because there's not a lot of you in the world, So I tell my students, if you have like a very niche passion, let's say origami, sometimes there's origami scholarships for women in STEM. Like you never really know what types of scholarships that you can find out. So we're looking for very specific criteria, basically. Now, how does it look like for your students when you start talking about this topic, basically scholarships? So conversations really begin in like October, sometimes November, but like ideally October, like beginning of October. One thing that I like to do is I spend just one meeting going through the process with them, basically showcasing a scholarship I found for them and how I went about finding it, how I went on Google, look for specific criteria because I know them, or excuse me, how I was able to find a scholarship specifically on the Education Foundation of Sarasota, etc. And from there, helping them create their own scholarship database. The link on here, and I'll bring it up shortly. But the main point is show them how it's done, first thing, and then have them kind of explore it on their own. This is when I do the TikTok scholarship homework assignment. And basically they kind of like run off of it. And once again, kind of encouraging them slowly but surely that they need to learn how to do this on their own. Another thing when you start having these conversations is stressing the importance of money in college. One thing I like to do at the end of the year when my students are right about to graduate is have a conversation with them about finances. But this is kind of like the beginning of that, where stressing how the more that they win, the less stressed they're going to be. And I also talk about my own personal experiences when, having these discussions, basically. Okay, I do have a case study here. Obviously, this is a recording, so I'm gonna have you do it on your own, wherever you are. But yes, case study, Hispanic woman, first gen, Latina, learning disability. She's doing physics or aerospace. Take your time to, try to find a scholarship. Anyway, we'll continue on with the scholarship database. Okay. Here's a template. Okay. Not going to show the template, but it's very easy to understand. Um, One thing I love to do is when I'm looking for a scholarship or two for my students, once again, showing them how it's done, I also show them how I insert it and put it into the scholarship database. And it basically has the deadlines, the notes, how many rec letters, it has all the little Excel sheets, or little Excel marks that you can like add in, the personal details for the scholarship. So I always stress my students, name, website, due date, number of essays, all of the information that you could possibly, put in there. And then stressing to them that, especially for the renewable ones, because I like to sometimes highlight them based on color, based on if it's renewable or not. I tell my students, and I tell them this every single meeting when we talk about scholarships. Do not forget, when you're gone out into the real world, you're in college, no more college coach going on, you will reapply to these renewable scholarships. You want to hammer into them as soon as possible. Okay, so a little bit more of a timeline idea. September, I would say, like for coaches that have very highly competitive students, or even just like one competitive student, I would start looking for like national scholarships that they would be able to qualify for. I wouldn't pick too many. I would pick like two max, three really max. For once again, really highly competitive students because national scholarships are the most competitive. Once again, October, November, start doing this possible, like the scholarship search with your students, how to find local scholarships, give them the TikTok homework. December, that's where you, especially like winter, like around winter break, is when you start crafting these scholarship essays. I tell my students, you did the hard part, you did the college supplements. We're gonna make, we're gonna work smarter, not harder. We're gonna do a lot of copy pasting, we're a lot of editing, make it formatted to fit with the scholarship prompts. I always tell my students that's how I love to, that's how I apply to scholarships. I'm gonna have you guys apply the same way. Because at that point they're kind of burnt out. I mean, I was burnt out. So that's one thing I would recommend. January, a lot of national scholarships are due, so make sure those are in. A lot of the local scholarships are open by then. So by the time February rolls around and all the way to March, or excuse me, all the way to May, you guys would ideally be applying to these, adding more in, applying, adding more, and once again, keeping the scholarship database, your personal scholarship database as updated as possible. Each student should have their own scholarship database. Okay, so with that being said, wow, I'm so good in time, half an hour. Okay, key takeaways. So, like I mentioned before, you want to target specifically with your students scholarships that relate to their background, their academic interests, as specific as possible. You want to match the student to the scholarship. You want it to fit them. When answering the why I need money question, financial context, so much. I mean, if I really had to give you something to take away from that one, financial context, helping them understand that, they want to accomplish a 4-year level bachelor's degree education, talking about their personal goals and why they are stressed with money and why they want to be financially independent and not rely on loans, stress on the no loans, and basically kind of give a little bit more insight into what their current financial situation is looking like. Coaching techniques. Now, we talked a lot about renewable scholarships. Please, once again, stress that to your students. That's how especially like for effective scholarship strategies, finding scholarships that your students can like ideally rely on when they're out in the real world. And one of the most important things is making the scholarship database because once again, you're not going to be holding your students' hands forever. At one point, they will be independent. They will be out in the real world and they have to be self-sufficient. They have to make sure that they can navigate how to independently look for scholarships, secure scholarships, and do it all over again the following year. So the earlier you can get them feeling more comfortable with the scholarship database, the better off they will be. And ideally, it's less work for you too, because at one point they'll just start finding scholarship for you, and they'll be excited about it. Because at the end of the day, I tell my students, this is for your financial freedom. This is for you to not worry about it in the long run. For me, when I have these conversations with my students, I explain to them that, I was stressed applying to scholarships every single year, and I made just enough that I was okay. And I always stress them, the first year, when you're applying to the first year of college, is the easiest. You are most eligible for scholarships that year. When you get to a college level, any college student at that point can apply. But for high school seniors, you guys are the most specific. Now, I can, I as a college student, or graduate student, can apply to those scholarships. So you want to set yourself up perfectly so you don't have to worry about money, at least not that much, for the next 4 years. So empower your students through teaching, value the independence, or make sure that they value their independence as soon as possible when securing scholarships and creating the scholarship database. And ideally, you guys will all be good to go. So with that being said, that's all I got. Thank you. Probably no questions. But yeah, thank you for listening, and you guys have a good one. Bye now.